The next thing I'd like to speak about is some of our vegetation that you can plant and grow that is safe to have around your home in a fire community. For example, a large sampling of succulents, different types of cacti and euphorbia and so on. They don't take a lot of water, but they retain water. And another thing, the fire service is not trying to tell you that you need to remove all the native vegetation on your property. There's value in our native vegetation. To my side here is a sugar bush. But our sugar bush is a sugar bush tree. And in reviewing fire records, our property has not burned over since before 1905. So it's essential in those types of communities of plants that you plant the right things and make your house fire safe as possible. All the major electric companies in California are now doing emergency electric shutoffs due to high wind conditions like those found during a wildfire. Another step, we're all familiar with generators and more of us are getting them, but another safe step you could do is go ahead and hire an electrician and be able to set up an electrical panel where you simply plug in, shut off the main, and have your generator feed your house. It's simple and it's clean. At one of the historic wildfires in California, an engine strike team tells us that the garden hose at homes was their most effective firefighting tool because of mobility. It's important, especially if you did not get out in time, perhaps the event happened at night and you were not notified, that you not try to fight fire. You're not equipped and you're not trained to fight fire. However, if you're able to, after the main fire passes, if you're able to go outside and put those things out immediately adjacent to your house, that can be very effective. What we're talking about here is an idea that came from a Fire Safe Council member in one of California's communities, and that was to use succulents to create a heat sink. In this case, jade plants and others. So in this scenario, we're on a slope, and this slope is annually weed whacked. So you'll have refuse from weed whacking, which we leave to arrest erosion and rain and so on. If this fire were to slowly burn up to the jade plant or even sheet across the surface and hit the jade plant, the theory is that the jade plant has enough moisture that the fire stops. The other thing we want to look at is look how we lollipop our trees. We can reduce the fire impact of these trees by reducing the fuel ladder. So surrounded by another variety of jade, the oak tree is limbed up, so this weed-whacked area is not going to affect that tree and get fire up into the crown of the tree. So these are native trees. California values its live oak trees and as well as other plants. Don't be afraid to try other ideas and challenges. We're in an area that burns frequently. The big challenge for us that remains is this wood deck that hangs out over the edge of this valley. In an attempt to mitigate it, we were given the idea of why not try some fire sprinklers underneath, so we did that. So with this idea of using fire sprinklers, what we want to try to do is to make them resistant to cold and resistant to fire. So we utilized foam insulation, covered that with wire, and then stucco. The next step would be that we attempt to stucco any of the uprights and cross members so we don't get any heat effect to the deck. The other thing is this deck is not fire resistive Trex. Remember also that most of these deck materials were made through processes of the petrochemical industry, plastics. What we can do now is there are available fire resistant brands of these types of decking. When we moved here, we found deep thickets of dead brush in these areas which now look clear to you. And what we did with that is anything over an inch we used as fuel wood. The rest we sent to landfills. Many properties in rural California have propane tanks. I have seen families that thought it would be a great location to pile up their firewood. And once they saw our presentation, it was immediately removed. It needs to be as clean as this throughout fire season. This needs to not have direct heat on it. You can't leave it in a state where the grasses and the branches and the leaves are underneath it, or it will burn underneath the propane, and that could lead to a safe release, and in a bad situation could lead to a catastrophic levee an explosion. This is an example of some of the work that our neighbors have done. Living next to a fire mitigation specialist can lead to a lot of work for all of you. However, if you can get a hold of your fire departments, your CERT teams, fire safe councils, you can make a change in your neighborhood. Well, thank you for being with us. We've covered several items about home construction, landscaping, cooperation with neighbors, some challenges and some willingness to seek out some ideas and think out the box. Our main goal, though, is for us to come home to our home in the event of a wildfire.